All right, here we go. Welcome, you guys. Very happy to be here. I'm sorry we're a few minutes late for people who are starting to join us. It is 2:13, and we're super excited. We have a couple of Webby Award winners here with us today, and we're just going to briefly hang out and chat a little bit about, I think, mostly about simplicity on the web. And I think our two CEO founders here are excellent people to speak about that, as they both started and run, I think, experiences which are frequently complicated on the internets, but which the two of you have made simple. So welcome, Elias, the CEO of Songza. How you doing?
Good, good. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, pleasure. And welcome, Justin. How do I say your last name, Justin?
Gignac.
Gignac.
Yeah.
By the way, it was Elias Roman. I should have said Elias's last name too. And Justin is the co-founder of Working Not Working.
Correct. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, pleasure. So for those of you who don't know about Songs and Working Not Working, why don't you guys tell us a little bit about it? Elias, let's start with you. I'm sure most people have heard of Songs and probably use it at this point, but for that one person out there.
Absolutely. So for that sorry, basically curated playlists that have been designed to make whatever you're doing right now better. And so the way the experience works is, first we predict what you're up to right now, and then we serve expertly curated content to make working out, waking up, commuting, getting lucky, sleeping, whatever it is that you're doing better. And from a differentiation perspective, other music services are, well, they're music services. They're ways for you to search for and browse and curate your music experience. We use music as a means to an end, a way to make what you're doing better.
Awesome. Justin, tell us a little bit about Working Not Working.
So Working Not Working is a curated, invite-only community of the country's top freelance creatives. Freelancers go on and make a really simple profile and put whether they're working, available, or available soon. And then hirers from ad agencies and brands follow their favorite freelancers and get notified the second they become available, so they don't have to go and call their entire Rolodex anymore. They can see everybody they know all on one page, organized really easily and quickly, so they can find who they need right now.
Awesome. And you both won Webby Awards last week. Congratulations.
Yes. That was very exciting. Thank you.
Yeah, you had a pretty good speech there, which we'll direct people to later. I think you shocked everybody with your head as it popped up and then went back down.
As it often happens, yes.
Yeah. So one thing I know, and I don't want to get stuck on trying to make too many comparisons, but one thing and again, we want to talk about simplicity here a little bit. And I think one thing we really noticed this year with both of the sites and the work that you guys do is that you did take something that has been, I think, reasonably complicated. And in the one case with Songza, the interesting thing is and actually in both cases, but people really have a passion for music, and they are actually willing to invest a lot of time, and people do invest a lot of time in their music tools, in their playlists, and in curating them correctly, and in discovering music. It sort of actually has become part of the culture of being into music, is that you actually also have to be good at working all these tools to get the music you want. But you guys really took a different approach and sort of eliminated that whole entry process into finding, and really just simplified it so that you're sort of it's like really hard on songs to not be listening to music in seconds, which is, I find, very, very different than most of the other music apps out there. Was that sort of the inspiration for it? Were you like somebody who hated going through all those playlists and doing all that searching, or was it something else?
It was really a realization that people love what music does for them as much or maybe more than they love music itself. And so instead of making people do that thing for themselves, we sort of saw that as an ability to provide the service. And there is still the joy of pretending an awesome Songza playlist you found is your own. And we hear sort of guilty customer feedback all the time. People saying, I feel like I just ordered expensive takein and told everybody that I cooked. I love that. With the fact that you could get that without spending 6 days in display is awesome.
Oh, that's cool. I love that. That's a great idea. Ordered a takeout and made it seem like you cooked at home. It shouldn't be a guilty pleasure, though. And Justin, I think the same concept, though, same idea, but it's like I think on both sides, people spend, certainly I think people who are looking for talent spend an inordinate amount of time like combing through these often really terrible tools, actually. It seems like most of the time they were actually developed quite a long time ago, and it's just, since everybody's there searching, nobody's bothered to improve them. And I feel bad for people using them, but you guys really did something where you just sort of said, hey, let's focus on the immediate and the now, right? Who's looking for work now, who isn't looking for work now, and bring those things top of mind, or bring those people right to the people who are looking for them sort of in real time, I guess.
Yeah, so my partner, Adam Tompkins, and I both have a background as art directors in advertising, and we've spent most of our careers, or a lot of our careers, freelancing. And, you know, we know a lot of talented people who are freelancing, and it always was the same process time after time, where the hirers go and call you when you're, of course, when you're working and you can't take a job, and then when you actually want a job, you don't hear from anyone. So instead of waiting for people to come to the freelancer, we figured we should broadcast the availability of the freelancer to the hirers. And the way hirers used to, work before is that they had a Rolodex or an Excel spreadsheet that had all the freelancers they knew, but it might not be up to date, it might not be current. There might be people who just joined, just quit their full-time jobs, and they had no way of knowing that. So they end up going through and spending a day, 2 days, emailing everybody they know, only to find out that they're all working. So now, we try to just take the people that have the talent and the people that want the talent and connect them directly. Because the other alternative, some people use job boards online or search through LinkedIn, but a lot of times when hirers get desperate, they call headhunters, which is an insanely expensive cost. They only call them when they're desperate, and then they spend tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars a year paying headhunters just to connect them with the freelance talent. So we just broke down the wall and got rid of the middleman and brought everybody together. And now everybody's happy.
But so one challenge must be, though, is that you have to get, you have to get both sides. You have to have, I don't want to say content, because at the end of the day they're people, but you have to have people on both sides of that equation to make it work, right? Like if you had all the talent in the world and none of the people looking for them, or vice versa, you sort of would have nothing. Right, exactly. So we made sure we have the best talent in the country, and we just started expanding internationally too. So hopefully soon the best talent in the world. And then we're hustling. How do you do that? How do we find the best talent? Yeah, so you guys are actually going out and trying to get the people to use the service as a way of making sure there's good talent on it. Yeah. There, right? Yeah, so we started initially last January by inviting the 300 best freelance creatives in advertising that we knew. From our 10 plus years in the business, most of the people we knew are the award-winning creatives that are doing all the best famous work. So we invited them, and then we gave them all a few invites and said, all right, don't screw this up. We want the best of the best on here. Only invite the best people you know. And then from our, I've been freelancing for the past 6 years, so I built relationships with creative managers and creative directors at agencies all across the country. So when the time came, they already knew me, and so I was able to just say to them, hey, I started this thing, and we have all the best talent. Everybody you already love hiring is on here. Why don't you check it out? So it was actually a really easy sell because of those. It's almost like I've been building this brand for the past 10 years, and Adam's been building this brand for the past 10 years just from the relationships we know. And now we're out there hustling, trying to get brands on, trying to get publishers on, and trying to get magazines on. So that's a little bit more of a sell of working those relationships, but we're also utilizing our freelancers to reach out to the contacts they already have in all those places and the people that already love to hire them, and then encouraging them to come on and follow them. So they're doing a little bit of the work for us as well, which is nice. Interesting. And Elias, you guys actually have a bit of a different challenge because whereas Justin is really working, I would suggest, in sort of an industry audience, which is still enormous, but probably on some level finite. You guys are looking to literally get everybody who's interested in music to use your service. So there's sort of like more places to look for them, but there's like an infinite amount of places to look for them too, I guess.
Definitely. There's this elite 1% maybe that is really tech savvy, really music savvy, has the time and inclination to invest in DJing for themselves, and then there's everybody else, and that everybody else is our target audience. So we really approach growth in a number of different ways. One, of course, is word of mouth. Events and holidays are some of our biggest growth days because you'll have someone who's not pretending they made the playlist, and everyone's like, what are we listening to? This is awesome, and that's how songs get spread. But we also work with interesting brands and celebrities and help them create a soundtrack that makes what their audience is doing better. So everyone from Victoria's Secret to Mercedes-Benz to Maxim. And then on the celebrity side, everyone from Justin Bieber and Kesha to Olivia Wilde and John Legend. We're helping them create these awesome soundtracks to different things that are relevant to them and their brand and their audience. That are get spread is through the interesting things those folks create on our platform. So there's, of course, a number of different ways we tackle that challenge, but yes, it's a big addressable audience.
Yeah. So do they, so you mentioned like Justin, they can basically go in and create the mood, the track, the playlist that they feel like they want to share with their people, so to speak.
Exactly. We really try to wrap a moment. Exactly. So for Justin, for example, it was on Valentine's Day, and the situation that you saw when you opened up Songza was a Valentine from Justin. And when you press that, you'd see 3 sort of romantic playlists, one of which was handmade by Justin. So if you're a Justin Bieber fan, that was just about the best Valentine's Day you had ever had. So it was a really cool way of making it
so sad.
It was nice. It was intimate.
Yeah.
It was authentic.
That's great.
So yes, that type of integration.
Interesting. So it's really, it's not there all the time. It's really focused around something specific, timeliness, an event.
Definitely. There's nothing wrong with perishable content. I think if you're creating something real-time, cultural and topical, real-time and perishable are just part of the game.
Right. And I would suggest that that's actually part of something very perishable also lends itself to simple experiences, because you're not necessarily trying to create all these ways and interfaces for people to get to the thing that happened before a long time ago that was related to this other thing. It's like it's there and it's gone.
It makes it more special, it seems like, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not about archiving everything always. It's about right now.
Right. And in most of, on songs, I'm not downloading stuff, right? It's like it really is about now. When the track's over, I'm on to the next one.
Exactly. It's not about sort of ownership and forever and saving, because once you start falling back on things you've saved, you get what we call stale iPod syndrome. Mm-hmm. You just listen to the same things over and over again, as opposed to every time you open it up, it's fresh.
Right. Interesting. So how much, so we're talking a little bit about timeliness, and part of timeliness, I would imagine, is like is location. So how much is, Justin, how much is mobile a part of what you guys are doing? So I was looking at working on my iPhone, and it's working very well. It seems like very responsive, and it seems like a nice. And I would actually say, I know you guys, Elias, have an app, but Songza works perfectly well on my iPhone as well. Just the website. But how much is mobile a part of your constituency? Are they using it primarily from their desktop, or how are you guys looking at that?
At the moment, most people are using it from the desktop because they're looking at it from work, and they're at their desk. They just got a brief. We got to get a team in here by tomorrow. So a lot of it's desktop, but we're working on making mobile more optimized, simpler to use, even simpler for the freelancers from their aspect. The only responsibility for the freelancers on our site is that they keep their status up to date. So we're working on a mobile version where they can just hit one of the 3 buttons, working, available, or available soon, and then be done with it, and move on. And then trying to make a little bit more interactive dashboard and search tools for the managers for mobile. But we haven't got as far as an app yet. But I think as long as our site's responsive, we'll be able to handle that. Right.
And Elias, what about? I know you guys have the app and the regular web version, right?
Yeah, absolutely. About 70% of our usage is mobile, and I mean mobile like native app mobile, not mobile web. But it's very predictable in terms of the patterns. Like Jerry Maguire style, people are waking up with Songza and going to sleep with Songza. It's the first and last thing they do, and that's very much a tablet and handset experience. But then you have this big chunk of usage during the day, which is predictably a desktop or laptop experience.
Interesting. And so how much, why then the mobile web version works so well? What was the thinking? Why the native app? Why not really? But so how do you guys think about that?
One of the big challenges for us on mobile web is the limitations of things like background audio playback. So that ends up getting hammered when you put the browser in the background. You've got your phone locked. You have other audio.
Interesting. So it's really it's mostly a technical issue with the handsets, I guess, more than anything.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it.
Right. Interesting. And so, but Justin, you guys look at it as almost, you're looking at it as like two, I wouldn't say different experiences, but you're thinking about people using these in different ways in these different places and creating experiences for those different sort of use cases rather than sort of like one universal, experience for everybody everywhere.
Right. Well, it's like, we're dealing with the two audiences, the freelancers and the hirers. So I feel like the freelancers more often than not are going to be updating on the go and going to be updating from their phone, if they're at the beach or at a job or wherever it is. And then the majority of our hirers all work from the desktop. So for now, that's what we're focusing on. But as it gets, as it spreads and grows, we'll be able to make mobile a little bit more relevant for that.
Right. One thing go ahead.
One thing to add, sorry, just since we're on the topic, is actually the difference between mobile and tablet and then the web. I think we view web as somewhat more of a lean forward experience during which it might make sense to expose other things. But if you're using Songza while you're online at Starbucks or walking down the street, not looking up like you should be, I think dramatic simplification is that much more important. And so, there are things we'd want to do in that interface that are very different than we want to do in sort of a more traditional lean forward web interface.
Right. But I mean, I think one of the things that's, for me personally, just as a user, that's been very refreshing, and we've seen this year in Webby Award Winners, is it feels like the need to really massively simplify for mobile because there's so little space and so forth has really actually started to permeate onto sort of a regular desktop experience, and that it's influencing designers and it's influencing the way regular websites are built because we've actually all become so, like, I think, happy with all the clutter being gone and like this simplification that it's a nice thing now that the web in some way is being simplified, I guess, just by influence of.
Well, that's even as far 5 years ago when everybody was freaking out about Flash not being on the iPhone, when the sites were so robust and so like everybody tried to do everything and show off everything they could do. And it's like now, and it's important for us at Working Not Working to just focus on one thing and do that really, really well. Like we could have also been a portfolio site, and we could have also been, try to be more of a LinkedIn or whatever. But we wanted to focus on freelancers and their current availability. And then, if you go to our site, it's literally the freelancer's picture and then their title, their availability working really, really large, and then everything else is secondary. And we keep, and I think when you focus on something and do it well, people will appreciate that and gravitate towards that.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, you both, Elias, I'm sure both of you really, you have a lot of people using the site. In both cases, they're using it for things that are reasonably important in their lives. Music being very important in a lot of people's lives. Obviously, working being fairly important to people. Yeah. You must get a lot of, we need this feature, I want this feature, can we get this feature requests, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, there's always a feature bloat, always has a tendency to creep in if you let it. I think, fortunately for us, it's less and less about new features as people experience the bliss of simplicity on Songza, and it's more of new situations, new content, more personalized, more fresh. It's things that exist within our existing core feature set. And so I would describe the main thing we focus on as refinement and improvement, but not new feature creation, which is great. That's a good place to be. And new feature creation is tough because for us, when we create a new feature, our first reaction is, well, okay, what can we get rid of now? We certainly don't want a new thing.
Right. Do you feel like you're not listening to them though? If you aren't, there's that if you have, do you feel like you're you're tone deaf to the users if you're sort of not like constantly trying to implement all the requests?
No, the opposite. We're obsessed with this process we call voice of customer research. So we'll do these groups of hundreds of hours of one-on-one, hour-long phone interviews, and results that we have these deep probing conversations, and everything we do is based on the voice of the customer. It turns out that this simplicity, this continual refinement, this reduction of features is a desired thing. So very, very rarely are there sort of loudly requested features that we're not building, and it's not because we're building all the loudly requested features. People don't want new features. They want benefits, and benefits for us come from refinement of our core focus.
Right. Interesting.
Well, and I think for us, we're taking people's current routines of finding work, and especially since our entire user base is freelancers, they're relying on getting a job to pay the bills. So they're very passionate about what they do already, and we try not to screw up something good that they already had, whether it was with current, their relationships with current hires. Like, we want them to be able to just make those better. And for the hirers, we want to take what they're currently doing and just make it easier. So like we did with, them being able to just contact the freelancer and see their availability. One feature we just added was the ability to make custom folders, so they could go and organize the freelancers by specific project or new business pitch. And then they can go and just email that directly to a creative director, and it'll pull out all their portfolio links and send those to the CD. So then something they already have to do, where they could usually copy and paste the portfolios and send it off, we're making it one button organization and send off, which they really appreciate, and like that we're thinking about what they do every day and just making that as simple as possible.
Right. So sometimes maybe it is about creating more features, but it's like simplifying the stuff that's happening outside of your experience, right?
Yeah, and just bringing it in and folding it all in and making it as simple as possible. Yeah.
Right. Elias, you one thing I think is kind of remarkable. Like, can you give us some insight into navigating the world of music licenses?
Oh yeah.
Because one of the things I think that's actually really amazing about Songza is that you don't, as a user, you actually don't really feel like you enter into this discussion, or in a good way, or world of legal licenses, which again feels like it's generally part of a user experience in other services, where you're constantly trying to figure out who has that song, and if you're allowed to use it or download it, and trying to share it, but you can't share it, and you try and tweet it, but the person you tweet it to can't listen to it, and you guys seem to have sort of insulated us from that.
We have a very different view of the value people assign to music, obviously. We describe it as a means to a really important end. And I think one of the benefits of that view is the license that we fall under is the broadest possible license. Any song that's been commercially released is sort of something that we can play, just like the radio. And so because we're not looking for these very specific things like interactivity, for example, or remixing, or whatever it might be, we don't have these really aggressive, hard-to-get licenses that don't include everything always. And so I think from that perspective, the way our users define interactivity is very different than the way we as an industry define interactivity. As an industry, interactive means a totally different set of licenses. For our users, interactive means you've got something to make drinking gourmet coffee better, you've got something to make singing in the shower better, you've got some working interactive experience for them.
Interesting. So and what you mean the industry defines it as interactivity, meaning like people's ability to go and choose specific songs, I would imagine.
Exactly.
That's the limiting factor on the license, or one of them anyway.
Right, and that's something that for most people, most of the time, not only isn't something they do, it's not something they want to do. They have a day job, and it's not choosing songs.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
I just love that you guys have a twerk at work playlist, which I've listened to a couple times. It's good.
It's our twerk tape is our most viral, popular playlist ever. That's why we made it part of our Webby's acceptance speech.
Nice.
Great. So
That's
good.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about you're both leading companies, and I think we always say here you can always tell the state and the health of a company by looking at its homepage, right?
Okay.
And that like you go to the homepage and it's streamlined and refined, and there's a clear message. That generally that actually means that the people who are working there and the mission and the founders and the leaders sort of know what they're doing or have an idea of what they're after, and they have a pretty like streamlined, front-facing view of the world. How do you do that? Or any like insights into the challenges you had both starting these initiatives in sort of maintaining, I think, a very clear focus to the world from the outside?
Well, I think for Working Not Working, we knew from the start that we had a single focus. The fact that we're called Working Not Working, really helps lead everything. It's like, we're about the status, we're about the up to the second availability, and then everything should reflect that. So, I think that made it really simple for us to just know our vision. And, if things come up with whether it's features or, new things we might want to add, and we just have to remember, does it get in the way of the availability? And does it make the customer experience or the user experience better, and take what they do every day and make that easier? And so that's our focus. And then on the homepage, we're just trying to project that as simply as possible, and point out people's pain points, which I think when you're trying to simplify things and when you're trying to reinvent the the current way things are done. You have to kind of point out the bad in order to maybe project the good, or at least remind them of what it is that they suffer from now. But I think, yeah, we just go on the homepage, we show you how it's done, and we give you a few proof points, and that's it. And that's all you really need. If you have a good product, you don't have to make stuff up, you know?
Right. One question I had, have you gotten pushback from the industry in that I would have guessed that, like, who the freelancers were that worked for you that you could get and so forth is kind of a competitive advantage, right? Like if you had this list and you the good ones, and that's part of the reason you were able to like churn out great work is because you have access to these great freelancers, and now you guys are sort of, and on some level you're kind of giving everybody access. I mean, it's not giving everybody, because good people still only want to work at great places, so there's like a meritocracy to it, but you're certainly exposing more talent to more,
Well, that's like some of the big agencies in town here in New York would hoard all the best freelancers, and they'd have them for months and months and months. Right. And it's like a new pitch comes up, like, oh, well, that guy's sitting right there, let's put him on it. So it's definitely become a democratization of the talent, and for the creatives, we want access to all of the opportunities. That's why we made our model is really simple, and it's, instead of doing a commission model like headhunters do and trying to undercut them, we just charge a flat monthly subscription, and the hirers can hire all the freelancers they want and can hire them full-time even if they want. We don't take a commission. Right. So we made it affordable for the small shops as well as the big shops to all be able to have access to the same talent, and for the talent to have access to all of the jobs. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing. A lot of people, when they get on now, some people don't want to invite their top secret freelancers that they're go-to freelancers. Right. But it's like the whole caged bird never sings. Like they're going to want to be on here at some point. So maybe if you hook them up first, they'll be a little more likely to come to you more often. But it is a little hard, yeah.
Yeah. So Elias, talk a little bit about just the challenge of scaling a company and how you sort of keep it streamlined and focused with sort of, but still trying to get bigger and succeed in like a very big marketplace.
I think the opportunity for us is we will get bigger because we will stay very, very focused. So fortunately, those two things are not only sort of not mutually exclusive, but they're not at odds with each other. I think it's such an incredibly crowded landscape, not just even within music, but apps more broadly, that if you don't shine at something, you really, really shine at something in particular, you just completely get lost in the noise. So I think the bigger we get, the more resources we have to be better at the thing we're focusing on, the more attractive and shiny we are. And I think that's sort of the loop that we've been benefiting from, and I hope we'll continue to benefit from. To go back to your homepage question, it's funny, we spent a lot of time thinking about how do we have a homepage that doesn't have instructions on it? No bullet points, no instructions, no tutorial, no video. And that was sort of a challenge we set up, and that was we were doing something very different, right? There was no other service that played content based on situational or mood context. And so what we really try to recreate was the interaction that you'd have with a concierge. That's really who we were thinking of. And imagining you go downstairs in the hotel, and this could be a friend, not a concierge. It's like, it's Thursday night, I'm new to New York, I'm looking for a good time, what do you suggest? Right. And so I think by creating that experience where the website will say it's Wednesday afternoon, play music 4, and then we have 6 things, one of which ideally you are actually doing in that moment. You don't need instructions, it's intuitive. You've had similar interactions before, you can apply that knowledge to this thing. So we're continually trying to make that process better. The more data we get, the more accurate we can become. But that was the task that we set for ourselves. No instructions, no video.
That's really smart storytelling. It's like, being in advertising for so long, it's like you want to tell stories, and by you putting those situations out there, you very easily understand and get what you're trying to do, and it's really smart.
But what's interesting too is I've gone through it enough where it's not like you guys have the same the guesses at what I'm going to say guesses. I'm sure they're not guesses, but the propositions as to what I might be doing now change. It seems like every time I go in there, or some of them change. They're not always exactly the same things. So what is that based on?
So there's a couple things at play there. One, the more you use Songza, the more we learn about you and your lifestyle, and the more accurate we can become. So that's one force at work. On the flip side, though, what came out of those conversations we had is people want 2 things from us. If you are commuting and you open up Songza on your phone, you'd really like to see commuting. Driving is one of the situations. You want us to be accurate, but we do a very limited number of things every day. And so you don't only want to see the same thing all the time. So you want us to have the bread and butter, what you're actually doing. And then you want us to have weird, new, fresh, quirky stuff. And so that's why we'll introduce things like quitting your job, or looking at pictures of your ex, or saving a world, or whatever it might be. Things you might not necessarily be doing, but are sort of fun and fresh and aspirational.
Quitting your job is aspirational.
It is. We have a lot of people that have done that. I can tell you it is aspirational.
So are you using data just from within the Songza experience, or is data from elsewhere a part of that too?
Do you use GPS to know that they're going 60 miles an hour?
Location, movement, weather, a lot of ambient signals are really valuable for us. But no, to answer your question, so that kind of data, yes. But data like, do we pull in what you like on Facebook, for example? No. Right. I think in some ways it's challenging for us to know exactly what to do with that. And we like having information that we've collected directly from the user. One, from an accuracy perspective. But two, from a context perspective. If I'm showing you something really intimate, but it's because you've told me something intimate, that's not creepy. If you get rid of that context of the opt-in, the dialogue, then it gets weird fast, and weird in a bad way.
Right.
It's nice you guys are avoiding that.
Yeah, I think we have to.
Do you, but like things like, oh, it's raining in New York right now, that plays into the stuff that you're showing us?
That certainly could. We don't as much as we can and will in the future, but that's incredibly useful context.
Yeah.
So is speed. So is knowing that you're at a beach versus a shopping mall.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think it's, and Justin, I don't know if you guys do it, how you're looking at that stuff, or if it's enough user input now that you don't need it, but sometimes a lot of that very complicated data that nobody sees is part of what goes into making a really simple experience for people, because you're able to give them better choices, better options, fewer options, because it's more targeted and clearer.
Yeah, well, like one of the things we've done is initially when you'd search for talent on Working Not Working, it was organized by whoever had the most vouchers first. That's our way of kind of helping the cream rise to the top. But what we realized is that a lot of people with top vouchers, it was great, but people would join the site 6 months or a year later, and they'd have to be starting from scratch, and they're super talented and should be getting exposure. So we went and took that and rearranged our search results. So now it's the people that have most recently updated rather than the people with the most vouchers. The vouchers are still there as a way of cross-referencing people. But to know that someone updated their status 5 minutes ago, then you have a pretty good chance of trying to book them, as opposed to someone who's hasn't worked for 6 months, or I've been busy for 6 months. So
Right. Otherwise, you just have
that way.
Otherwise, it's just those 300 people that you got at the beginning who would be like getting all the jobs forever, I guess.
Right, and everybody's stuck at the bottom. So a few months ago we went and changed that, and it's made a big difference. And people are getting on the site and getting work almost immediately. Some people, so it's nice.
Interesting. Well, last question here, and then we'll wrap up. You both talked about user input. Elias, you guys doing all those interviews. Justin, you guys talking to the core community that you brought on at the beginning and continuing to talk to them. How do you think about that challenge of discerning the anecdotal information that you get from one or two people, which seems really valuable, but at the end of the day might just be sort of the opinion of a couple people, from the aggregate information of either looking at metrics or analytics, or surveying everybody at once and having sort of uniformity? How do you guys deal with that or think about that? Elias, go ahead. Sounds like you guys do a lot of surveys, it sounds like.
Absolutely. We do a lot of surveys, and it's really important to know what you're expecting to get out of that surveys. You're not being told what to do. You set out objectives, and then you design an interview guide that has questions that will help you get input that will drive those objectives. And that's a really complicated way of saying we look for people to say things that make us smack ourselves in the forehead. And so it's less of a, this doesn't feel right, but maybe we should follow it just because, and it's more of, oh my God, we never thought about that. That opens up a ton of really interesting doors. Let's do that. It's very rare that the weight of the number of times we heard something is what causes us to do something, as opposed to it's just created an aha moment we wouldn't have had by ourselves.
Right. Interesting. Huh. That's really cool.
Well, and I think for us, Adam and I are both freelancing still here and there, so we're using the product on a pretty regular basis. So we're finding things that could be improved upon just based on our own experiences. And then also our network of friends, a good majority of them are freelancing. So we're constantly getting feedback. Some of it, they're brutally honest with us. So maybe we take it a little more to heart than, and think it's a bigger problem, certain things, than they really are. Right. But we sent out a survey like a month ago and just kind of wanted to get a litmus test after a year of how people are feeling. And we found some things that we just didn't really expect. Like I expected most of the freelancers on the site to want to stay freelance, and we threw the survey out, and over 80% of the freelancers would be open to a full-time job for the right opportunity. Huh. So that was really eye-opening for us to know. And then now we've got to figure out ways of just of helping them find the work they want, so they can live the life they want.
Right. Very cool. Well, thank you both of you for hanging out with us in this hangout. Good stuff, good discussion. I appreciate it. And congrats on the Webby. Congrats, more importantly, on all the awesome work you've done so far. And we're excited to see where it goes from here.
All right. Thanks so much, David.
All right. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Elias. Thanks, Justin.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.